Coming up, Purdue University President Mitch Daniels on the coronavirus, the impact on higher education and the economy. Will students be back on campus? And what about football? One-on-one with Mitch Daniels in our top story. Plus, ARIA Diagnostics in Carmel and its tests has really been testing first responders and city employees in Carmel. Now their tests have made their way to the Big Apple. Co-founder Zach Kahn joins us to explain how the company decided to begin making kits after New York's governor asked for help from the private sector.
I'm Mary Rachel Redmond in Shelbyville, where people are enjoying a blast from the past from a safe distance in the comfort of their car. I'll have more from the Skyline Drive-In feeder coming up.
Details on those stories and much more ahead on this edition of Inside Indiana Business. Hello and welcome to Inside Indiana Business. I'm Gary Dick. The coronavirus pandemic has forced college students all over Indiana to leave campus weeks ahead of schedule. The pandemic's impact on higher education and the Indiana economy no doubt will be playing out for some time to come and will be far-reaching. Purdue University planning to welcome students back to campus in the fall. But what will that campus experience look like? And will we see college football as we've known it? For some answers, we turn now to Purdue University President, former Indiana Governor Mitch Daniels. And President Daniels, it's always good to see you.
You too, Gary.
You were really out of the gate very quickly, among the first in the country to say, hey, we plan on welcoming students back to campus. That was 10 days or 2 weeks ago or so now. A lot of other universities seem to be following suit.
Yes, it's encouraging to see others come to the same conclusion. We didn't leap to it. We didn't make that statement impulsively. It came as a result of doing what we always do here at Purdue, watching the science, watching the data, and as it accumulated, it began to show us, we thought, a pathway to do what we're here to do, and that's help young students who want to achieve a Purdue education to do so.
Obviously, everyone wondering what that campus experience, the vibe, if you will look like. I know you're just out of a meeting where you've gone over a number of scenarios. What can you share with us in terms of possibilities, things that are at least being considered at this point?
We haven't made any final decisions, and our board will have to make those ultimately. But to give you the flavor, we will probably change our calendar to minimize breaks, that is to say, less coming and going of people. We know that can help hold down any spread. A central, maybe the central focus will be to separate the 80+% of the Purdue campus community who are young people, and now we know facing essentially zero lethal risk, possibly less than the old-fashioned flu, from this virus, separating them from that 10 to 15 or 20% who may be at greater risk, who are older, who have other ailments. And so that could be everything from more work at home, have fewer people on the campus to start with, separation certainly of faculty who are in those categories from the young people, physical separation, using technologies like the one we're using right now in some cases, barriers, all that sort of thing. You know, you'll probably see masks, you'll certainly see lots of social distance. Let me say one other thing that we think will make a lot of difference, and that is that to do this really well, we'll want and need everybody involved. It'll be a great collective project, we hope, or effort by Boilermakers to protect themselves but also protect others. And I think our students, I just know them well enough, I think they will really jump to this opportunity. We'll probably have a kit waiting for them when they get here that enables them to check their own temperature and, as I say, wear masks and things like that.
I have to ask you, President Daniels, college football, everyone wondering about will it be back as we have known it? There's certainly a financial implication there for universities like Purdue as well. What can you tell us about prospects for college football?
Well, I wish I knew, Gary. Worried about it for the obvious reasons. I think one thing we can say is, just as we just did about campus academic life, is that if football comes back, it'll look different somehow. Fewer fans, no fans, maybe a shorter season, maybe a season that starts later. I know our young men are just raring to go. I've seen some of them who are still around the area. And obviously, those of us who are passionate fans hope to have it happen, but it can only happen under conditions of safety for the players and the staffs, and of course, those who might come out to watch them.
Some great perspective, lots of unanswered questions still. I know those will begin to be answered in the coming weeks. Purdue President Mitch Daniels, as always, thank you very much for your time. Be safe, and I look forward to seeing you soon.
You too.
All right. Well, let's go to Southwest Indiana now, where Evansville Mayor Lloyd Winnecke is eyeing a restart to that region's economy, which had been showing definite signs of momentum pre-pandemic. Numerous projects are reshaping Evansville's downtown, including the expanding Stone Family Center for Health Sciences, new hotels, bars, restaurants, and shops, all helping to boost a new industry for the region, sports tourism. I talked with Mayor Winnecke this week via Zoom, and he told me getting the sports sector back on track is a priority.
We've formed a reopen task force anticipating guidance from the state that we're allowed to reopen. So whenever that is and however that happens, we want to make sure that business and industry are well prepared. And one of the points of focus of our task force is quality of life, because to your point, we have developed a really strong foothold in the area of sports tourism. In fact, just before the pandemic really hit, we hosted the Ohio Valley Conference men's and women's basketball championships at the Ford Center. Probably one of the last conference tournaments to be held in its entirety. So we're proud of that. So one of the areas of focus of this task force is to make sure we get back on track in the area of sports tourism. We want to regain that momentum. Obviously, we can't drive that alone. The organizations with whom we deal on a regular basis, the amenities that we have locally all have to be willing participants, but we want to get that conversation started sooner rather than later.
Mayor Winnecke tells me he expects a measured reopening to the economy in Southwest Indiana, adding that Evansville, like many other cities, seeking that balance between health and getting people back to work in a smart and measured way. Well, up next, the story of a Carmel small business owner who sprang into action to help the biggest city in America.
If there's anything better in the world, I don't know. These guys are dying. They don't have any kids, and they're asking the community to help. So we just kind of heeded the call.
ARIA Diagnostics now making more than 100,000 coronavirus test kits a week. Co-founder Zach Kahn joins us to talk about the product and providing jobs for furloughed Hoosier workers. It's time now to go inside innovation, brought to you by Allegion, pioneering safety. Well, Carmel-based ARIA Diagnostics has developed COVID-19 testing kits after answering a call for private sector companies to help in the fight against the disease. For weeks, the company has been really testing first responders and Carmel City employees. Now those tests are continuing to go to New York City after New York Governor Andrew Cuomo asked for help. ARIA has hired dozens of people who've been laid off or furloughed as a result of the pandemic to keep up with demand. Co-founder Zach Kahn joins me now to explain how the test came about really in just a few days. And Zach, welcome to the program.
Thanks, Gary. Thanks for having me.
So ARIA Diagnostics, you launched the company around 2015, so about a 5-year-old company that really started in the toxicology business. Give us a brief business model, if you will.
Sure. So I have had surgery centers around the country, mostly orthopedic and spine. We have pain doctors inside of there as well. And so my pain physicians had requested that we have some type of a lab facility to test their patients to ensure that they're taking their drugs correctly. So we opened this toxicology urine drug testing lab in 2015 to serve those needs, but then pivoted a few months ago.
Yeah, pivoted to the COVID-19 testing and doing a lot of testing in Carmel, in the Carmel area, but also jumped out onto the national scene after you saw a call from New York's governor for the private sector to get involved. How did that collaboration, that partnership with New York City come about?
Sure. So we saw the need to vertically integrate because we could not get testing supplies, which is a common theme across the country in this market. About 3 days prior to listening to Governor Cuomo reach out and ask for the private sector's assistance with his state and New York City specifically, we had already begun that vertical integration of getting our own kits together. And when I saw it, our hearts broke here at ARIA. And I spoke with my partner that morning, and he concurred. He said, we feel a call to do this. And so we reached out to Mayor Brainerd. Mayor Brainerd said, I know Mayor de Blasio, I'm happy to put you guys in touch. And so we began speaking about that. We spoke about kits in generality, and then as we got to know the situation a little bit better, we sent an initial 25,000 kits, and then they said, hey, these kits are good, but our hospitals, we have multiple different labs analyzing, and some of them can use these, some of them need different types of kits, and so we had to pivot and start manufacturing a little bit different types of kits to finish our contribution to them, our donation to them, which then turned into, can you also supply us kits on a retail side by purchasing them?
Yep.
And so we continue to do that.
Zach, there was some reporting locally and in New York that you weren't getting the required number of kits to New York City. Has that changed?
Yes, that's right. So initially we had only saline kits. And so that's what the demand has called for here in Indiana and the Midwest. And so when they said they would like viral transport media kits, there's 3 types of kits, if I could explain a little bit about the anatomy of a kit. So there's saline, and then there's viral transport media and amines. All 3 are different types of transport media that fit in a vial that once the specimen is collected, that specimen sits in that vial inside of this media. And the goal of that is just to preserve the media until it gets to the machine that it is analyzed on. So as each lab got their validation done to get their emergency use authorization, they did it in a specific media. So it's not to say one is better than the other. It just depends on at the time what they thought was right to get validated upon. So some of the hospitals there and labs are using VTM, viral transport media. Some are using saline. Yep. We weren't in the habit of having a lot of viral transport media. It got very, very expensive in the marketplace. But so we pivoted to manufacturing that for them, and that's gone really well.
All right. ARIA Diagnostics, Carmel-based company, also has launched a new self-pay web portal for testing for individuals here. So really into the COVID-19 testing in a big way. Zach Kahn, thanks very much for joining us. We look forward to following your story.
Thank you, Gary.
All right. Well, one ripple effect of the pandemic and social distancing, it's driving a resurgence of the way we watch movies back in the day.
Starts in 8 minutes. Yum, yum. It's time for a tasty and refreshing snack.
What is old is new again. Drive-in theaters making a comeback. Around Indiana reporter Mary Rachel Redmond takes us to Shelbyville and statewide locales where business is booming. Here's what's making news now around Indiana. Big news for Bloomington and Indiana's life sciences sector. New Jersey-based Catalent is inked a deal with a subsidiary of Johnson & Johnson for large-scale manufacturing of J&J's lead vaccine candidate for COVID-19. And that manufacturing will take place at Catalent's biologics facility in Bloomington. 300 jobs to be added there beginning in July to scale up production that could begin in January. Catalent's VP and General Manager Dennis Johnson told me this week, Bloomington, the perfect place for the investment.
We're lucky to have, whether it's Purdue, Rose-Hulman, IU, great sources of talent. And I think Bloomington is a real center for whether it's devices or different forms of biotech with several different companies in the area. So we're really pleased to have the talent to draw on, but it's going to be a significant add, and it's going to range from relatively manual operations to do packaging and to do work on the line of filling, to QC analysts and scientists, to supervisors and managers. And so when you look at it, it really is across the board. 300 headcount is really adding a small factory to what's already a large factory.
Catalent acquired the Bloomington facility from homegrown Cook Pharmica in 2017. It's grown the employment base in Monroe County to more than 1,200. Just this week, the company christened a $114 million expansion that was announced in 2019. Well, Indiana grocery stores and consumers bracing for more fallout from the pandemic, less meat and higher prices. There are 15 major pork processing plants in the U.S. 2 are in Indiana and account for about 8% of all pork production. The Tyson Foods plant in Logansport and Indiana Packers Corporation in Delphi both temporarily shut down. Jason Lusk, the head of Purdue's Agricultural Economics Department, says the closures will have serious repercussions on both the farm and retail side.
At the moment, there's too many hogs out there relative to the amount of processing capacity. So plenty of animals around. It's just that we got to convert those animals into food, and that's where the pinch point is at the moment. Is the ability to do that has been compromised by this COVID virus.
Lusk also warns of a slight increase in meat prices and limited selection. Well, AgriNovus Indiana, the state's Ag Bioscience Initiative, has named Mitch Frazier as its next president and CEO. Frazier most recently served as chief executive officer of Fishers-based Reynolds Farm Equipment and previously served as VP of marketing at Tinderbox, VP of marketing and investor relations at ExactTarget. He led media relations for Governor Mitch Daniels' team at the Indiana Economic Development Corporation. Frazier succeeds Beth Bechtel, who was appointed Deputy Director General of the Food and Agriculture Organization for the United Nations in Rome. Drive-in movie theaters, a thing of the past or a new trend that's actually making a comeback thanks to social distancing? Around Indiana reporter Mary Rachel Redmond set out to get some answers.
It's been over a month since anyone has been able to go into a movie theater to watch the latest releases on the silver screen. Hollywood is projecting losses of nearly $20 billion due to the global shutdown of movie theaters around the world. But the big screen isn't totally dead. In fact, many Hoosiers are stepping back in time to enjoy one of the 20th century's largely forgotten treasures.
Come early before the show starts. Give your family a tasty dinner at this drive-in.
I do believe that drive-ins may in fact see a new renaissance in the coming months. The drive-in is the ultimate social distancing experience because most drive-ins like us are, first off, we're basically like a big park. We're grass, we're trees, we're outside, and we typically have a lot of space. We have 9 acres.
And the last few weekends, the Skyline Drive-In has seen sellout crowds. And Godden tells me he and his team have taken extra measures to ensure maximum safety for all of their customers.
We limit the capacity to 150 cars, which seems like a lot, but our normal capacity is 300. So we have about 15 feet between every car. We have a mobile ordering app. They sit, they watch the movie while we fix their food.
With the Fan Food app, moviegoers can use their smartphones to order food from the comfort of their own car. Then when it's ready, they get an alert to pick it up at this window. No long lines and social distance maintained.
Fan Food offers two-way communication right through the mobile app with the customer. It's really almost like a combination of a carry-out food business that happens to show movies out in the parking lot.
And Godden is convinced drive-ins may become part of the new normal moving forward.
Drive-ins are going to become a part of the safety precaution because we've been doing this for 70 years and it's always been a social distancing business.
On with the show.
Mary Rachel Redmond, Inside Indiana Business.
Well, Mother's Day is right around the corner, and spending on mom is big business to the tune of $25 billion. But how do you celebrate during social distancing? Taking a virtual cooking class together like this one at Gallery Pastry Shop, that's one idea. Yelp's Brittany Smith joins us with more. Well, here's an eye-popping statistic for you. Mother's Day, which is next weekend, means big business for the economy. Last year, spending on mom totaled more than $25 billion, with a B, billion dollars. Despite the pandemic, this year looks to be even bigger. The National Retail Federation's annual survey shows 8 in 10 consumers will celebrate mom and will spend a little more, even in this age of social distancing. Yelp Midwest Regional Director Brittany Smith has put together 5 great ways to celebrate mom during this most unusual time. And she joins us now via Skype. Brittany, welcome to the show as always.
Thanks so much, Gary.
Yeah, I mentioned very quickly, we always spend a lot of money on mom, but now social distancing, and you think we're even going to spend more this year.
Yeah, now more than ever, people are looking for creative ways to connect with their families, and businesses are definitely rising to the occasion with pivots within their business to make that easier than ever.
All right, and you've got 5 great ways around the state of Indiana, and we begin with taking a virtual cooking class together but apart.
Yes, Gallery Pastry Shop. It's located in the Sobro neighborhood. It's one of the top-rated brunch spots in Indianapolis, and they're offering their baking classes on virtual platforms now, so you can be taking the class at home with mom. Some of their upcoming classes include croissants, macarons, ice cream, and now you can be taking those with mom even if you're not in the same household.
Wow, some cool-looking video there. Also, a lot of great pastry shops and bakeries around the state of Indiana. You can take really order-baked treats for delivery from Hoosier businesses.
Yeah, there are a lot of these great bakeries that'll ship right to your doorstep. A great example of that is Lucky Guy Bakery, located in Bloomington. They have wonderful brownie lineups that you can start out as low as $22 if you're on a budget right now to send mom a treat. And they even have gluten-free options, and it's a great way to support a Hoosier business.
Okay, I've got I like this one. Raise a glass to mom with cocktail kits.
Yes, cocktail kits are definitely popping up everywhere, from distilleries to bars offering them. Field Brewing in Westfield is one great example of that. They're now offering Moscow Mules to go. You can also get Bloody Mary kits to take and free delivery right in the area. Another example is Mallow Run in Bargersville, they're doing sangria kits. So you can get the jar, the whole container, and make a fun drink at home. All
right, that sounds great. Brunch is always big on Mother's Day, to be sure, and you can order carry-out brunch, right?
Yes, Traders Point Creamery is doing some really fun variations on that. One of the things that really stands out with them is they're also doing mimosa kits that you can take home. So you can get a jar of that with a strawberry rhubarb option. The beautiful thing about Traders Point is they also have their store where you can pick up some of their good items like the milks and cheeses. They even just launched a new ice cream, the cherry chocolate, which is quite delicious to try out. So it's kind of a fun one-stop shop where you can order brunch and support a Zionsville business.
Awesome. 20 seconds left, Brittany. You can make some gifts at home, too, with mom.
Yes, last but not least, Pottery by You is a great example. They have these Mommy and Me crafting kits, painting, gardening, fun kits that you can do something at home with the kids.
Brittany Smith, as always, from Yelp, some great ideas from around the state of Indiana. Great to see you. Stay safe out there, and look forward to seeing you in person soon.
Thanks so much. Likewise.
Okay. Well, up next, an exclusive and alarming report on how COVID-19 is having a big economic impact on doctors around the state. Could lead to job loss and less access to care for Hoosiers. Business of Health reporter Kylie Valletta breaks down the numbers with leadership from the Indiana State Medical Association. While many Hoosier doctors are on the front lines of the pandemic, many others have been sidelined, and it's impacting the ability for some healthcare practices to survive the COVID-19 crisis. That's one finding from a new report looking at the business impact of COVID-19. The Indiana State Medical Association is sharing the results first with us here at Inside Indiana Business. Business of Health reporter Kylie Valletta tells us what that survey uncovered. Kylie, over to you.
Thank you, Gary. ISMA surveyed thousands of Hoosier doctors and found the health crisis is putting an economic strain on medical practices throughout the state. 73% of physicians say they've reduced staff hours or had temporary layoffs. More than half of those doctors expect to eliminate positions in the next 2 months. Here to tell us more about how COVID-19 is impacting business and patient care is Julie Reed, the ISMA Executive Vice President. She joins me now via Skype. Julie, thanks for being on the show today.
Thanks for having me, Kylie.
Well, first of all, why did the ISMA want to do this report? What are your goals?
Sure. So let me just say how really, really fortunate we are to have great doctors in the state of Indiana and other healthcare providers who really have been just heroic during this public health crisis. Obviously, all individuals have been affected by it, and all industries have been affected by it, including healthcare. So what we really wanted to do was to determine what has been the impact on physician practices, so that we could determine how to help them reduce those barriers with their patients. At the end of the day, this is about access to health care, and we want to really make sure that we prevent delays to those important screenings and procedures that patients need.
Okay, there are some alarming insights in this report. 82% of doctors report more than a 40% decrease in revenues and patient encounters. Some report 80 to 90% loss in revenue and potentially closing their practices. As the ISMA looks at the results of this report, what are your top concerns?
Sure. So it really has been feast or famine for healthcare, believe it or not. We have some healthcare providers that are on the front lines and directly involved in the COVID response. And then we have, as you've mentioned, other healthcare providers that have seen dramatic reductions in patient volumes. Some practices have seen, almost all practices have seen over 40% reductions, some 80 or 90%. And so what's alarming to us about that is that means patients are not seeking the care that they need. And obviously that's not just for sick patients, that's obviously for the important screenings and things like vaccinations that we need that's part of our fabric of our primary healthcare system.
So we've talked about the business impact. You mentioned patient care. That's a big issue right now. You also mentioned access to patient care. That's frustrating for a lot of patients right now. What is the message that you want to give to the public with this report?
Sure. So, obviously we've seen the public affected by this dramatically. People are facing some of their hardest days and some of their hardest times. And we really need to make sure as a society we're there for all of those people that are facing hard times. From a healthcare perspective, we need to continue to remind people that healthcare continues to be important, COVID or not. People need to be attentive to their own healthcare needs and the healthcare needs of their family members and really stay in contact with their doctors during this.
Telemedicine, you mentioned, is off camera, definitely on the rise right now among doctors. A lot of them using telemedicine.
It absolutely.
Right. So we have a slight delay between us. The ISMA has said publicly they support the governor's decision to close practices, but there have been some unintended consequences. So what is the ISMA message for the governor right now and state leadership, even as some of these elective procedures are starting to be allowed now?
Sure. Well, we couldn't be more pleased with the leadership from the governor and his entire administration team, including the physician advisors who he's been working closely with. We are pleased to see elective procedures gradually start to open again. We think that's important for patient care. We've also, as you noted, been really pleased with telemedicine, which is this notion that patients kind of might see their doctors through a video visit on a computer, a tablet, or a smartphone, or maybe just connect with their doctor over an ordinary telephone. We've seen physician practices really adapt. We said a 70% utilization rate amongst practices for that, which we're really pleased with. On other fronts, we've had some challenges around personal protective equipment and access to masks and things like that for physician practices. Those are starting to improve, and we're pleased that the state has agreed to kind of help work with us to coordinate getting those for physician practices around the state. We're also pleased to see increases in access to testing, which will really be important as we start to think about reopening as a state. Overall, what I would really say is we've been really impressed by what I would call kind of the spirit of collaboration and innovation, and hope this is just the beginning of that.
All right, Julie, just a very couple seconds left. What do you want to do next? How do you move forward with this report, with the information you've been given?
Sure. So we're working on guidance for reopening practices, and really we need to restore the confidence in the public about going out and getting the health care they need, potentially even through telehealth. We're encouraging patients to check in for their checkups with their doctors and make sure their health conditions aren't getting worse during COVID-19. Okay, Julie Reed, thanks so much for joining us today. We do want to mention the report is on the ISMA website. That will happen later this weekend, so you can see the report in full. Julie, thanks for being on the show today. Thanks again for having me.
Gary, back to you.
Kylie, thank you. A great report, information you're seeing first right here on Inside Indiana Business. Thank you. Well, this week, General Motors Company announced it is in the process of hiring more than 1,000 workers at its Kokomo plant to make ventilators. The automaker says it has to quickly fill the full and part-time jobs to help current employees produce some 30,000 ventilators by the end of August. GM's Kokomo facility has been retrofitted to build ventilators to support the global relief efforts for coronavirus patients. The partnership with Washington-based Ventec Life Systems began April 6. The automaker says those positions offer a starting wage of about $16.67 per hour. A virtual job fair will be held in the week ahead on Wednesday, May 6. Well, we go to Northeast Indiana now, where Mayor Tom Henry says he supports this week's vote taken by the Fort Wayne Redevelopment Commission to approve an extension, another extension, to the Economic Development Agreement for the $440 million Electric Works Mixed-Use Innovation District. Three Fort Wayne officials had sent a letter asking Mayor Henry to not extend the agreement, suggesting the $65 million in public funds committed to that project would be put to better use by assisting small businesses being affected by the COVID-19 crisis. RTM Ventures, the development entity for the Electric Works development, made a formal request to have the agreement extended for a fifth time to allow for additional time to finalize private financing and secure tenants. The new milestone dates now are June 30 for financing commitments to be met and September 30 for the closing on the transaction. Well, three teenage entrepreneurs from Northwest Indiana with a healthcare breakthrough for those suffering from arthritis.
According to the CDC, medical costs due to arthritis add up to about $140 million per year, making it one of the top 5 most costly conditions among adults in the United States.
Meet these Sharp Hobart High School students who created the Remedy Glove. They're the winners of this year's Innovate Within pitch competition, and that's next in our Eye on Education report. We are committed to providing resources to help Hoosiers deal with the economic impact of the coronavirus. The Indiana Department of Workforce Development and Work One Central are hosting a virtual job fair Tuesday, May 5, featuring 5 employers with dozens of openings in the counties just west of Indianapolis. To register, just go to the website you see on the screen. Well, the pandemic nearly canceled this year's Innovate Within pitch competition, a Shark Tank engineering contest among Indiana high school students. But thanks to virtual technology, the students were able to showcase their entrepreneurial ideas through Zoom. The winning product, the Remedy Glove for those suffering from arthritis, the creation of Hobart High School students Megan Jones, Joshua Bright Sprecher, and Abigail Haluska. And we welcome them and Innovate Executive Product Partner Tina Hafer to the show via Skype. Ladies and gentlemen, one and all, thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Tina, I'm going to start with you. You were a judge. You're an executive partner at Innovate Map, but you were a judge for this competition. And there were dozens initially of competitors, some really cool ideas, innovative ideas out there. Talk about the process and the amount of talent and ideas and energy you saw on the stage.
I am happy to. Yes, I was a judge in the statewide competition, the final round of it. And so I was able to see incredible products and incredible presentations from teams across the state. I was extremely impressed by, one, the fact that all of these teams were able to transition to an online competition seamlessly. The competition itself was very smooth. The presenters were extremely polished and professional. And it not only gave me hope, but it gave me confidence in the state's ability to produce some incredible entrepreneurs and incredible ideas that are really, I'm sure, going to be incredibly successful as they take these forward.
Yeah, I think
it was a joy to participate.
I think you bring up a great point. It really gets people excited about what's out there from a talent perspective in Indiana. I think that is indeed very important. Okay, Megan Jones, and you serve as the Chief Operating Officer, the COO of AM Therapeutics. I'm going to start with you. How did this, the Remedy Glove, we're going to see it in a moment, but how did this idea for the Remedy Glove, how did it all come about?
Yeah, absolutely. So last summer, Abigail and I knew that we were going to be in our engineering course where we had to solve a problem in our community. So at this point, we were kind of brainstorming in the summer, trying to get the ideas flowing. We knew we wanted to help our community and our family members that suffer from arthritis and spend thousands of dollars on products out there already. So our main goal was to make something that was mobile, affordable, and accessible to our loved ones so they can just pick it up at the drugstore instead of getting a prescription. So then we brought on Josh, and then the Remedy Glove and AM Therapeutics just kind of took off from there.
Yeah, very great, great idea. And it took about a year. Josh, over to you. What was that process like? The three of you, I think, are engineering oriented through your high school careers and looking to do that in college as well. What was that process like? What was it really like putting this together and taking it from idea to a product?
So it was definitely difficult at the start because none of us were not really qualified. We didn't really see ourselves as like up to par with anyone who really runs a business. We were just high school students in a senior engineering class. So a lot of the beginning of the year was taking in information, gathering information together, teaching ourselves new things, and growing in order for us to, before we could execute any like plans for our idea. We even questioned our own idea at one point, but we were determined. We wanted to create our product, so we stuck with our glove, taught ourselves more, did a ton of research, gathered lots of information, and we were able to execute and get to where we are today.
And obviously you impressed a lot of people in winning the competition. Okay, Abby, give us the show and tell here of the Remedy Glove. You've got it with you. I think you have it on, actually. Talk about the glove, what it's all about.
Of course. So we really wanted to make this glove mobile, and we wanted to use three therapies to treat hand and joint pain. So this glove has compression, heat, and vibration therapy. It has a built-in compressive sleeve that's already inside of the glove. So as soon as the user puts on the glove, they feel compression. There's also a vibration feature, which can be controlled by switching this dial, left and right. And there's a heat function, which can be turned on by switching this red button on and off.
That's very interesting. Abby, now, is this a viable product? I mean, is this something you're going to send out to market?
We do plan on beginning product sales. We're hoping maybe in the next year, but as of right now, we're just continuing development, and we plan on getting into some manufacturing after this.
Very good. What's the reaction been? Can you give us an idea of what people have had to say about it?
Of course. We're very present on social media as of right now. We have a Facebook, Instagram, and we have our own website. And through social media, we've had a lot of people give us inquiries, show and express interest in our glove. And with that, we hope to maintain their interest while we continue progressing and making this the most perfect glove we can, and then we'll distribute it.
Okay, Abby, so you're headed to Purdue, Megan to Ball State, Abby in engineering, Megan nursing, and Josh headed to Purdue as well in engineering, right?
Yes.
Good. Well, good luck in your college careers, but also good luck in your entrepreneurial pursuits. You're really sharp young people who've come up with a great idea. And Tina Hafer from Innovate Map, thanks for the contribution and for being here and for what you're doing to support them. It's a great story. And all from the winners from Hobart High School, the Brickies in Northwest Indiana, right?
Yes.
Okay, very good. Well, congratulations, and thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having us.
So much.
Well, up next, the public sector. Cities like Fishers are collaborating with private Indiana companies to get the state's economy back up and running. We've assembled a panel of experts to take a look at some of the innovative partnerships that are taking shape, and we'll explore when we come back. Well, the private and public sectors are collaborating really like never before, banding together to create partnerships to get Indiana back to work. This week, we begin the first of 3 bi-weekly segments to really drill down on what it's going to take to restart Indiana's economy. And pleased this week to be joined by Indiana Secretary of Commerce Jim Schellinger, also Fishers Mayor Scott Fadness, and KSM Location Advisors President Katie Culp. And welcome one and all to this first edition of an event that we really want to focus in on business survival tactics and getting Indiana back to work. And Jim, I'm going to start with you. You, the IEDC, certainly the governor's office have all been on the front lines of working collaboratively around the state with private sector companies, community organizations, and others, collecting a lot of personal protective equipment, those types of things. Give us, from your standpoint, what you're seeing around the state of Indiana when it comes to these collaborations that really we are seeing on a daily basis.
Well, it's interesting. I think we're on day 42 of the executive order. And at that point, the governor asked that IDC become sort of a concierge service in addition to continuing the work that we do on an everyday basis. But we've reached out and spoken to thousands of businesses. We did a survey. The governor led a survey to send it out to 15 different organizations and associations to say what is the best practices when certain the non-essential businesses reopen. We've asked for that by market sector as well as by association, and it's really impressive. I got to tell you, the people that are putting these plans together, they're very thorough, much more thorough than what we're seeing as guidelines out of the Center for Disease Control. So that's something that we're happy about. But in terms of PE, we have a team that comes into work all day. They work late into the night because of different time zones, and they're putting together PPE. They're now over 7 million, almost 8 million pieces of PPE that they've actually ordered in all categories, and which is great. And we've received about 2 million of them already, and they're continuing to work around the clock because we're never going to have enough PPE. And we're working very closely with the Department of Homeland Security, with the Indiana National Guard, State Police, and of course Homeland Security, very closely with them to make sure we're collaborating on all this. And so it's been a very successful effort, but we still have our day jobs too.
Yeah, right. Mayor Fadness, Secretary Schellinger talks about collaborations and the things that he's seeing around the state of Indiana. Your city, Fishers, you've put together a comprehensive recovery plan, really. So you're in the planning stages right now and about to implement that. Give us, in a nutshell, why you're doing this, why you put it together, and what it really involves.
Thanks, Gary. I know the governor and Dr. Box and Secretary Schellinger are all hard at work at a state level, and we know that each one of us at the local level need to do our part at a grassroots level to ensure that small businesses, medium-sized businesses, and large alike all have the infrastructure and the information that they need to be able to get back on their feet as quickly as possible. And so our recovery plan really has 2 components to it. One is a public health infrastructure that we think is critical. The other is some economic policies at a local level that will allow small businesses to really get back on their feet quickly. And we're excited today, actually, is the first day that we started testing in Fishers, and businesses can actually sign up to have their employees tested as well and have a personalized dashboard for each one of their businesses. So we're really excited to do our part at a local level to ensure our local economy is ready to go for when the governor and Dr. Box and others make the informed decision to turn us back on.
Yeah, and Mayor, obviously safety and health are top the list when it comes to focus areas on restarting the economy. But from your perspective, what you're hearing in Fishers and around the region, how anxious are companies and organizations to get back to business?
They are. I certainly think they're anxious to get back to business, but I think everyone found a new normal in those 42 days. And there are companies that are saying until we have the appropriate infrastructure in place, we may continue to work the way that we are until we feel comfortable bringing people back into the office. I think what I hear on a daily basis are those small businesses. If I'm a salon owner, if I'm a small shop, if I'm a restaurant, obviously that lives by that retail interaction. They're dying on the vine and certainly are struggling. But one thing I did hear from a restaurant owner that I thought was really interesting, I asked him, well, what's your thoughts on this? He said, Scott, with the PPP program and various things that are out there, we're doing okay. What we can't survive is spending our last dollar to get reopened, hiring everybody back, and then 3 weeks later or 4 weeks later, everything has to get closed down again because of an outbreak. And so that's why, at our local level, we feel very passionate about testing and making sure we have the public health infrastructure so that if we do have flare-ups, that we can deal with those, not have to shut down the entire economy to deal with it.
Katie at KSM Location Advisors, I know you advise and talk to clients on a daily basis about things like the payroll protection program, which is now in, version 2, if you will. But talk about some of the government programs that are now available and what you're hearing from businesses, not only here in Indiana, but in everywhere you do business, about how important those are to getting back to business.
It's all over the gamut right now, and I applaud what the Secretary and Mayor are doing and Governor Holcomb, because they're getting only so much information from federal government too, which is similar to the PPP program, where banks and accounting firms and the like are trying to interpret a lot of legislation where much of it is vague, and we're all awaiting some additional guidance to come out about what some of this loan forgiveness will look like. But in general, companies are either falling into the category of having received some PPP approval, maybe not the money yet, but the approval, and now trying to decide, can they use it, or is it too risky to use it? Might there be recourse taken from the government to get it back? And then there's still a lot of companies who haven't received word yet, and they are hanging on, the small restaurant owners and the hair salons, like Mayor Fadness mentioned, who are just waiting with bated breath to hear what happens. So the demand is far in excess of the supply of funds, and there's just a lot of anxiety floating around with it.
Katie, are there additional things or things that you see that the federal government, state government can do to help facilitate and to help get folks back to business?
I think everybody's doing it. I think to Mayor Scott's point about, you don't want to open up and then have to shut down again a couple weeks later. It's this careful balance, but people are very eager to get back to work. And just open the economy again. And until then, I think everybody's just doing a great job. I think we're talking a lot on the business side of things, but you look at those who have been displaced from a job perspective. I mean, the state has done just a tremendous job taking on the Herculean effort of navigating an enormous spike in unemployment claims, and then awaiting rules about how pandemic unemployment insurance will be beneficial. So it's just all of us are kind of absorbing this information and reacting as quickly as we can.
Jim, you're a very busy guy doing all of the COVID-19 related things for the state, certainly, but in your quote unquote day job, certainly economic development and investment, keeping companies here and inviting companies to come do business. As you look at that process, how would you assess economic development from a state level right now? And how important do you think it will be the way that Indiana handles this whole return to business? How important will that be to the economic development game and getting more investment in Indiana?
One of the things I wanted to begin with is compliment Mayor Fadness. He may not know that his plan's been brought to us, and we consider it a marker. It's a trophy plan for our municipalities. So we're hoping every municipality does that. But I have a little sensitivity to certain terms. One is I always am sensitive when somebody calls us the Rust Belt, because we never were the Rust Belt. We had issues, but our automobile industry is amazing. Secondly is when people talk about closing the economy and reopening the economy. I'm sensitive to that out of respect for the 2 million people that are working and are still working, especially in our first responders. So we have our economy has slowed down, and what was determined by the federal government as the non-essential businesses have been really bad. But in terms of everything else, we're just going on like a little engine that could. We've had over 10,000 jobs in 4 months committed to Indiana, 1.3 billion in CapEx. That represents about 99 projects, and it's going great. 2,500 a week. So we've never stopped doing all the things that IDC is doing. We're actually continuing to do them, and we're going to continue to do them beyond this. So there's been no indication anywhere that we would change how we incentivize companies, how much we incentivize. And I'm excited about the work that the Indiana Economic Recovery Relief and Recovery Team is doing, because we've been working diligently. We meet every other day for 4 hours a day in person, and I think within the next week, our municipalities should be happy. There's going to be money starting to be distributed from the CARES Act that will affect every single one of the 92 counties. Everyone will be impacted by it, and I believe this will just be an initial. And then, of course, we're going to have an application process that comes back to us with everything a county would wish to do, and then we'll have additional distributions at some point in time. And I was encouraged by Senator Mitch McConnell's comments yesterday that he's now open to giving the states more money, even a fourth tranche, depending on resolutions they reach to hold certain companies not liable, so that we don't have this flood of lawsuits going on as the non-essential businesses come back to work. But the governor is planning to make an announcement about this on Friday. And again, he continues to say, I love it when he says, I always want to be first and the fastest in my life, and now I just want to be the surest and the safest. Yeah. So he is data-driven by the health department and others, and that's how those decisions will be made, and it will be staged.
All right, Indiana Secretary of Commerce Jim Schellinger, also Fishers Mayor Scott Fadness, and Katie Culp, president of KSM Location Advisors. A lot going on now. Certainly, we really appreciate your perspective as this getting back to work agenda begins to really take shape. Thank you all for joining us. Well, the COVID-19 Business Survival Series will continue here on the show. You can also find a lot more information, including a webinar series that we have begun, and you can find that information at ksmcpa.com. And I'll be right back after this. Stay with us. And remember, you are not alone during this crisis. The hashtag #InThisTogether social media campaign really aims to keep Hoosiers healthy and return Indiana to normal social interactions. Thanks for joining us this week. I'm Gary Dick. Go out and make it a successful week.
Inside Indiana Business with Gary Dick is a production of Grow Indiana Media Ventures, with support from WFYI Productions.